Welcome, everybody. There we go. Good enough. Moving camera. All right, we're good. Welcome, folks. John Aravosis here. Let me, as always, get TikTok rolling. This always takes me a minute, as you know, but I figured I'd at least get you guys rolling on YouTube so you knew I was here. Oh, wait, TikTok. That's Twitter. That's no good. All right, give me a second here. Anyway.
This is a PSA to any girl that tries this.
Another exciting day of estates for John. Here we go. We actually have a small election update. Most of today is about Ukraine. There is not a ton of election news, to be honest. Let me look here. One second. La la la. Always takes me a second to set up TikTok. It's kind of cute. All right, there we go. All right, go live. There we go. Hello, Maine. All right, TikTok is live. Mirror. Good. We've now got it in the right position. All right. Hello, all. Hey, Martin. All right. I assume you guys can now see me on YouTube. There's always that delay with the ads or whatever it is on YouTube that always messes things up. Hey, Rob Martis, Luis, welcome, guys, on TikTok. We always wait about half a minute or so just for, critical mass of folks to arrive here. But we will talk a little election news, a lot of Ukraine news today. I will admit up front, there is not a ton of election news actually today. Some stuff, we'll talk about it, but more Ukraine news than anything else, really. Thank you, Chazak. So yes, how's everybody doing? Happy Friday. Today's Friday, August 30th. Kind of insane. Summer's already over, which this stuff drives me crazy. Thank you, Chazak. Just crazy. Summer's pretty much over. Labor Day already. Thank you, Brandon. Little stuff for my lips. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, John S. and Elizabeth. Anyway, and Tina and Alan, lots of little gifts on TikTok. Thank you, guys. So welcome, YouTubers. Welcome, TikTokers. I'm John Aravosis. Thank you, Denise. This is my show we do every Monday through Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern Time, U.S. We talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Hold on. I'm still trying to adjust this on YouTube. Yeah, I'm a little happier-ish. Okay. But yes, thank you, adventurers. We talk about the latest news from Ukraine. I also talk about the latest election news. We'll start with the election news. There isn't a ton. Like I said, today's not a big news day. A couple interesting things, though. And then we will move on to Ukraine. Good chunk of Ukraine news, actually. But anyway, let's get rolling here. So welcome, guys. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. I am typically based in Washington, D.C. I'm visiting Chicago for about a month or so. We'll see how long. Thank you, Iggy, for the boneless chicken or boneless goose, whatever it is. I'm a political expert. Thank you, Jorge. I've been living in Washington, D.C. for about 40 years. Have been working in professional politics for almost 35 years. As I like to say, I'm that old. And basically started this channel. I started the channel for a number of reasons, but started doing videos, the lives, initially to talk about the war in Ukraine. My background is foreign policy, a lot of domestic policy too, but I did a law degree and a master's in foreign service at Georgetown, which is the top foreign policy school in the country, according to the ratings. And wanted to talk about the war in Ukraine, and I've also a background in journalism. I've written for The Economist. I've worked in the U.S. Senate. I've just got a lot of sort of Washington knowledge that I hope I am very good at sort of translating things. Thank you, Hannah. Sort of translating stories for people who may not follow the news as much as I do, because I do it for a living. And again, with the foreign policy perspective and the election perspective, both of which I bring the Washington background. So anybody who's new, that's what we do here. Thank you, Karis. Let me jump right in. So thank you, Nicolette. Tomorrow morning, we've got our coffee talk. Our coffee talk, I call it for the TikTokers. Basically, almost every Saturday morning at tomorrow, it's going to be 10:30 a.m. Chicago time, which is Central Time, or 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, which is New York City or Washington, D.C. So if you're abroad, you can always check that out. You can just look for the time in Washington, D.C. or New York City, and it's 11:30 a.m. You want to find us, okay? And somebody let whoever asked about the sound, Elvis, I'm assuming since no one, there you go, since no one else is complaining, exactly. When you have sound problems on TikTok, typically leaving and come back, which Ash just mentioned, can help. Basically, often it's your connection with the app or something crazy with the app. So just leave the app, maybe even close the app and reopen it, and you should be able to hear me fine. Thank you, Todd. So, all right, guys, let's get rolling. Final pitch, of course. Please keep the gifts coming. I ask you that because I do this for a living. I literally pay the bills with your gifts. I am sort of full-time content creator on the war and also now on the election, TikTok and YouTube. Thank you, Tarad. That is cute, the hug, the bear hug. That is very cute. So that's why I hit you guys up, because quite literally, this is my job. No one pays me. You pay me. So, all right. And we have the house being cleaned on the outside as we're talking. So you may or may not hear power washing of the windows. Who knows? It may be exciting. All right. Let's get rolling. Thank you, Cheryl and Becca. As I said, we'll start with the Ukraine up. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Last little point I didn't actually tell you. So for the paid monthly subscribers, for the paid members on YouTube, the paid subscribers on TikTok, thank you, Kim, cute bear. And thank you, Becca and Cheryl. I do a show every weekend that basically is just me and the paid subscribers. It's a much smaller crowd. Thank you, Dawn. It gives you guys a chance to basically ask questions, just, whatever you want to do, chat about whatever you like. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Becca. But thank you, Dawn, I should say. But because for this show, for example, the next half hour, I'm going to be going through the news. You can ask questions, but typically I'm busy with the news. The weekend show is much more casual. You can sort of pick my brain. There's fewer of you. So basically every question I should see if you have a question. So if you can, but thank you, Michael. Or if somebody wants to give Michael a gift subscription for a month on TikTok, Michael McAllister, you may. People do that from time to time. I don't want to strong arm anybody, but thank you, Becca, for the gift. So yeah, it's sort of a nice thing we do on the weekend. So, and anybody who can afford to subscribe, please do. Okay, enough of that crap. Let's get into the news. Thank you, Arlene. So Kamala Harris did a interview on CNN last night. She was good, and I'm trying to say this sort of in an objective way. Biden's interview sucked. I mean, when Biden did his debate with Trump, it sucked. I told you guys, we watched it live. I told you guys it sucked. All right. So I certainly cannot stand Donald Trump, but I'm going to give you an honest assessment of how I think, Kamala Harris is doing. Thank you, Randy. She was good last night. She was smart, as Ocean just said, very presidential. I'm trying to think. Actually, she looked a little older, which I thought benefited her. She's older now. She's 4 years older than she was, and she's been vice president, which typically, the stress of the job. She looked a little older, and I liked it. I liked it from a gravitas, seriousness perspective, right? That was good. She gave good answers. She sounded smart. She sounded presidential. She sounded, I would say, actually, Ocean's giving all the good analysis here. Poised. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Gamma. I've talked about this before, and I'm going to mention it again. In America, we have sort of a unique thing that the Europeans have told me they don't have, and I was very surprised. Thank you, Martin, for the meerkat. Thank you, Filter and Vicky and Stranger as well, and Jen. Thank you, guys. Appreciate the gifts coming in. Female politicians in America have this weird thing they have to navigate where, keep in mind, we've never had a female president. We've never had a woman leader as the head of the country. That's just not something America does to date, right? So European countries, you guys go back, I don't know if the earliest was Margaret Thatcher. What was the earliest in Europe? I wonder. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Maddie. But Margaret Thatcher was those, late 70s, early 80s. She came to power, right? In America, we've never had a female president. Thank you, Jen. So what women politicians have to deal with in America overall, but especially president, is two stereotypes of women politicians in America. One, you're a bitch. Two, you're a lightweight, right? So it's either, as Trump says, a nasty woman, right? That if a woman candidate is too strong, thank you, Kim, for subscribing. Thank you, Brett and Flicker. If a woman candidate is too strong, too smart, too this, too that, they're called bitches, right? She's nasty. She's an angry woman, right? If she's not strong enough, she's a weak woman. And Trump has been trying to play the weak woman card with Kamala Harris. He said again today, any foreign leader who watched her interview last night knows she's not strong enough to be president. He's playing on this stereotype in America of women are weak leaders, this kind of thing, right? So it is always very strange for a woman running for high office, let alone president in America. Thank you, Flicker. Thank you, Anne, by the way, Mary, Colin again. because they have to prove they're not weak women, but they have to prove they're not mean, overbearing women, right? And it's a catch-22, as we say, meaning you're kind of stuck in the middle. She, I think, did just that. Thank you, Grumpy. I will say Kamala Harris has always struck me as really a good combination. She always comes across as very smart. Again, very intelligent. She's a lawyer. She's well-educated. She's also a lawyer. She's smart, but she's also boom, boom, boom. You can tell she thinks very logically and she analyzes things, right? But she's also very, she's a woman. I mean, different than me, right? I'm a little more just aggressive, whatever. She's more poised. She's not soft, but she does the sort of strength in a very measured, not even poised is the word I'm looking for. I'm very demure. That's funny, since that's the word of the day. Thank you, Max. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Brett. She does it in a almost unemotional way, is kind of the way I want to put it, right? It's someone who's level-headed, right? They're a smart leader, level-headed. They're not going to get unflappable, right? That's how I want to put the poise thing, because I thought that was interesting, right? Anyway, just saying that. She was good. Republicans said she wasn't. There was one question she did not do a good job with. She was asked, and I mean, it's kind of an obvious question, but she was asked, what would you do on your first day as president? And she got kind of flubbed. She didn't know what to say. Then her VP, Tim Walz, was there. He didn't give a very good answer. I will say, okay, to me, I would have just, because who cares, right? No one's going to fact check you. Oh, the first day you didn't do that. I've said national security. National security is number one. Any other issue can wait a day. National security can never wait, right? Education can wait a day. National security can never wait. To me, that's like the obvious answer, right? Now, you also, because the reporter is going to say next, well, but you're already there, right? You're already vice president. What do you mean national security? Are you afraid national security isn't being addressed? So my point would have been A, national security, but B, you got to remember, I'm not new to this. I'm vice president. I'm already working on these issues every day. The advantage you get with me, listen to this. The advantage you get with me is my first day was 4 years ago. My first day isn't January 20th of 2025, right? You're not hiring somebody for the job who doesn't know what they're doing. I know what I'm doing. So we're not doing anything different on the first day than by the way, I'm going to be in that job, basically in that office the night before and that morning as well, before the inauguration. So I think you also could say that, right? Now that's very funny. George just said on day one, she won't be a dictator. That's very funny because Donald Trump said on day one, I'll be a dictator. Now, my guess is she doesn't want to be flippant, because that sounds kind of flippant and she wants to be more presidential. But I still think she should have said national security, because there's no harm in saying it. And saying, but you got to realize, it's not my first day on the job. I'm already going to be there the day before and the week before and the month before. So that's the advantage with me. And Donald Trump's been gone for 4 years. He has to get up to speed. My advantage is I don't need to get up to speed. So I don't need to do anything different on day one. Having said that, and she can even go further. She can go, having said that, there are a number of proposals I want to start working on. Additional things we can do that we didn't do in our first term. Education, immigration, right? So she can even start to like list. Anyway, she did a bad job on that question. It annoyed me a little, but Kamala, I will say this. She's not always, certainly in 2020 when she ran for president, she wasn't always the best on her feet. Even though she's a smart lawyer, she used to do stuff like this 4 years ago, where she'd get asked questions, she'd get a little bit like flubbed, She's doing much better now because she has a lot more experience. But I think that question, thank you, Succeed, that question was her kind of going to the old Kamala Harris, where sometimes questions throw her. And it's not because she doesn't know the issue, but it's true to some degree. What are you going to do different on your first day? What are you going to do on your first day? Well, it's not my first day. So what do you mean? Right? It doesn't quite make sense. Any case, like I said, that one she didn't do as well. The other issue, which is interesting, that we'll talk about with the election, and then we'll just go to Ukraine, because like I said, there's not a ton of election news today, is abortion became a big topic in the last day. Very interestingly. So Trump, I think a couple things are going on here. Trump is worried about the election. Kamala Harris, I think, is tied with Trump. The polls certainly show it. Trump was beating Biden crazily. He's not beating her, but she's not beating him. They're pretty much tied. They're tied nationally, and they're tied in the important states. Now, he's ahead in some, she's ahead in the others, but it's by such a small amount, like 2 percentage points, 1 percentage point, that it's within the margin of error, meaning they're pretty much, they are, we use the term statistically tied, right? Neither of them's winning. Trump is getting worried. Trump thought he had this nailed against Biden. Now he's not against Biden anymore. He has to now fight. One of the areas he's trying to fight on now is abortion, which is crazy, because Trump is trying to present himself as like pro-abortion now. Ironically, the anti-abortion groups freaked out. They absolutely freaked out on him because he tried to do it yesterday, right? Listen to this. Yes, he claimed to try to show that he's now pro-abortion. There's a referendum or whatever they call it, an initiative in Florida, and to basically extend the period of time you can have an abortion. So make abortion more liberal, whatever word you want to use, make abortion more available, right? And Trump, I didn't put my, got it. My brother's texting me. Oops, got to put my, where is this? I'm going to put my little, if I can find it. I always forget where this is, the little thing on my phone. I can, hang on, guys. Otherwise, I'm going to give up and just deal with text messages. I don't know where it is. Oh, well, okay, I'm not going to find it. I was looking for the little thing where I can like tell it to chill out until the next, nope, not going to find it. Okay, I'll live. It'll be beeping. That's fine. They're broadening abortion rights with this referendum. Trump came out and said, I support it. I think we should abort it. It shouldn't be. Okay, Abby says it's called Amendment 4. It would expand your right to an abortion up to 24 weeks. Right, 24 weeks of pregnancy. Trump came out and said, I'm for it. I think we should expand the period beyond like 16 weeks or whatever it is. Well, his campaign then came out and said, that's not what he meant. He didn't mean that's the way he'd vote as a Florida resident. Like, what kind of an answer? I mean, he just said, I think we should pass the referendum, right? The amendment. But his staff says, but that's not necessarily the way he'll vote. Well, then there was an article, but the anti-abortion groups freaked the F out. Thank you, Ellie. Absolutely freaked out because, of course, Trump is now trying to pretend he's pro-choice, and he's not. So he's in a mess on abortion. He's also trying to claim he's pro-IVF, which is in vitro fertilization, where you basically fertilize an embryo in a test tube and then implant it in the woman. And he's now trying to claim he's pro-IVF, and he wants to mandate, this is great too, because Republicans, remember, they're all, communism. He wants to mandate every insurance company in the country has to cover IVF and provide it for free. Provide it for free, he says. Well, the reason he's saying this is because Republicans basically have been getting IVF banned, and they want to ban it. Republicans, MAGA Republicans, the conservative, MAGA Republicans, they're the religious right, religious conservative Republicans that run the Republican Party. They think embryos are people, literally. There was a court case in Alabama, our state of Alabama. It's in the South. It's very backwards, very poor, very Republican. One of the poorest states in the union, one of the worst education. All the programs are horrible there. It's a Republican state, and they don't care. They vote on abortion, and they don't care that their state's a disaster, whatever. Alabama, the Supreme Court of Alabama decides that fetuses, like not even fetuses, embryos and test tubes are people. They're people. Well, all the clinics and hospitals around the state that handle IVF freaked out. They said, wait a minute, you mean I've got 10 test tubes of embryos in there from this woman? You're telling me those are 10 people? And by the way, they could have hundreds of embryos of all of their clients. So now those people in my freezer are not just embryos. They're now people in the freezer in the hospital. So if the freezer breaks, you've just killed 100 people, right? If somebody, accidentally unplugs the freezer, you've killed 100, you've murdered 100 people. So all across Alabama, they stopped doing in vitro fertilization, just stopped doing it, which is amazing. Just stop doing it. Well, Republicans don't like in vitro fertilization. They again, because they're controlled by the religious types, they think, these are people and you throw away the extra people. Because again, in vitro fertilization, one of the issues with it is that it doesn't always work. So it's not like you fertilize like one embryo or whatever, and implant it into a woman. You sometimes implant 3 or 4, knowing that only 1 or 2 might work, right? Or none of them may work and you have to do it again later. So they typically will create a number of these that they then implant. Well, once you have the child you want, what do you do with what's left, right? The Republicans are saying it's a baby, it's a human being. You can't get rid of it. Anyway, so Trump is now trying to flip on that and claim, oh, we're for in vitro fertilization. But he's freaking out the abortion groups because they're like, wait a minute, like you're Mr. Pro-choice now? Now, the final point I didn't mention, which I assumed you know, but again, some of you abroad may not know this. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Metapol. Is Donald Trump is responsible for women losing the constitutionally protected right to an abortion in America. For the last 50 years, women's right to an abortion, women's right to choose, was protected under the Constitution. The Supreme Court had ruled, our top court at the federal level, had ruled back in 1973 that the right to an abortion was granted under the Constitution, was guaranteed under the Constitution, under a woman's right to privacy, a woman's right to control her own body, right, for medical purposes, etc. Donald Trump vowed he was going to end that. He was going to take that right away from women. He appointed 3 right-wing justices to the Supreme Court that had previously said that they were against women having abortions, right? And what do you know? Oh, hey, okay. He promised he was going to get rid of it. He promised he was going to appoint justices to get rid of that protection for women, and they did. And he now has bragged about it. He bragged about it as recently as a month ago. I got rid of Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade is the case that protected a woman's right to an abortion in America. That is gone now. Any state can ban abortion. 20 states already have. They've already banned abortion. A number of them don't even give exceptions for incest or rape. It's all because of Donald Trump. So Trump knows that, and he's now trying to claim he's Mr. Abortion. He's like the abortion doctor. It's a little crazy. It's a little crazy. But Biden cannot fix it without correct, Magro, because the Republicans like to say, why didn't Biden fix it? Because we've got a Republican Congress. That's why Biden didn't fix it. Democrats, if you give Democrats control of the Congress, on day one, they with the president as well, because it takes Congress has to vote, both houses, and then the president has to sign it. If Democrats have control of the House and the Senate and the presidency, on day one, they will pass a federal protection for abortion. But it's cute that Republicans like to bring it up. Why didn't Biden do it? Biden didn't do it because the Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives blocked him, and Republicans in the Senate as well. Because the problem with the Senate is, even if you have a majority in the Senate, one person can still block a lot of stuff, which is very bad. Anyway, thank you, Grumpy. But yes, so Margot, you are correct in saying that. That's why Biden couldn't do it. So anyway, that is it for the election news. As I said, there isn't a lot of election news today. It was just the abortion stuff is heating up. Actually, the final point to mention, Trump, the controversy is now in its 3rd day of Donald Trump's staff basically reportedly assaulting an employee at America's most famous national cemetery, Arlington National Cemetery. It's where the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier is. It's in Washington, D.C., but it's not really Washington, D.C. It's a nearby suburb of Northern Virginia. Washington, D.C. is kind of, it's small. So it's D.C., but it's not D.C. It's right nearby. It's our most famous military cemetery. And Donald Trump's campaign with Trump and tow decided they were going to film a political rally, basically a political event at the cemetery, and with using the dead bodies of our troops as political props. Really gross. It's not just gross, it's against federal law. Well, they get there, and not only are they planning on filming this political event, which is totally illegal, they try to go into the area of the cemetery where the new bodies are. You're not allowed to go where the new bodies are. From what I was trying to understand why that is, bodies from the last couple of years. And what I was reading was, it's because it's like the most sensitive part of the cemetery, because if you go back 10 or 20 years, family members start to die off. Family doesn't come as much. Somebody who's died in the last, couple of weeks to last couple of years, you've got a lot more family members showing up there. You're not allowed to even film in the area of the new graves. What does Trump do? He gets some of the family members in tow, and he goes in front of the graves, films, and they hold a video and photos. And the photo, I showed you guys this the other day. The photo is Donald Trump going like this and going in front of the grave of the dead U.S. soldier. Okay? It's illegal. It's a federal crime. It's disgusting. If a Democrat, again, if Kamala Harris had gone in front of the grave of a dead U.S. soldier, a dead U.S. hero, to film a political event, A, she'd be dead, right? B, she smiled in front of the grave, she'd be politically dead. C, she put her thumb up like in front of this dead soldier. I mean, you can see the soldier's name. And even worse, because Trump's saying, well, the family said it was okay. Yeah, the family doesn't overrule federal law, okay? It doesn't matter what the family says. Secondly, there are dozens of graves behind the family. Your child's grave, your husband's grave, your parents' grave is in this Trump campaign video. That's why it's not, that's why another reason it's not allowed. I still can't believe that, and again, this is what bothers me with Trump at a basic level. There is an inhumanity to the man. There is a crassness, a disgustingness. He doesn't respect the troops. I've told you this before. We've got lots of evidence of that. Thank you, Nar. Thank you, Joe. He's not a normal person. No normal human being would go to a cemetery and A, take a picture. It's a little weird. Maybe you would. It's a little weird, right? B, if you're taking a picture at a cemetery in front of a grave, you're not going to go, smile. Imagine taking the picture going, okay, everybody, smile. Because you know they said smile. You're in a graveyard. I mean, literally, no idiot is going to say smile at a graveyard, right? They said smile. If they said smile you're at a graveyard, your face is going to go, right? Like, especially if it's your loved one there, your face is going to go, what? You're not going to go and put your thumb up, which is Trump's little campaign sign. That's Trump's sort of signature campaign thing. No, it just, on so many levels, it so just disgusts me. It so disgusts me. And it equally disgusts me because, unfortunately, Trump supporters are in this sort of cult-like thing where they've got to defend everything he does. So Trump just disgraced our troops. He disgraced our dead heroes. He used them as political props. He went to a cemetery, a military cemetery, and smiled. Keep in mind, Trump previously refused to go to American military cemeteries because he thought our troops, he claimed, were suckers and losers for getting killed in action. They were suckers and losers for being prisoners of war, Trump said. Okay? He refused to go. He didn't want to go visit those suckers and losers. He also refused to go visit American military cemeteries because one day it was raining during one of the big, I think it might have been the World War I celebration in France. It was raining and Trump didn't want to get his hair wet. I kid you not, his hair would have gotten wet. He didn't go. Okay, if a Democrat had done that, right? Imagine Kamala Harris if she didn't want to get her hair wet, right? That would be the end of her. Look at the girl that didn't want to get her hair wet, right? He's also a draft dodger, M. Barrera mentions, which I totally forgot about that too. He's a draft dodger as well. It's just, anyway, it just sickens me on so many levels. And again, if Republicans want to be in a cult and support Trump and everything, that's fine. I mean, it's not fine, but this kind of stuff just infuriates me. Just the disregard for the troops is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. Anyway, all right, let's move on to Ukraine. That's it for the. Although we went half an hour anyway, I'm surprised. I was going to say there wasn't much election news, but we actually talked about it anyway. Ukraine. It is day 918 of Vladimir Putin's special military operation. Thank you for the gift, Super Hornet. Keep the gifts coming, guys. I need the gifts to pay the bills. So please keep them coming. I appreciate it. 6 people died and at least 55 others were hurt following a Russian-guided bomb attack on the city of Kharkiv in eastern Ukraine. In Kursk, which is the region, thank you, Marie. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Josh and Mike. In Kursk, which is the region, the Russian region, right across the Ukrainian border. Actually, I'll get my map. Hang on. Easier to show you on the map than to try to describe Russia like pantomiming in the air. Thank you, Brett, Super Hornet, Tari, Jen, Nar. Who is this? Alexia. Thank you for the gifts, guys. Appreciate it. Russia, when it invaded, took this 10 years ago and then took this when they invaded 2.5 years ago, right? Ukraine's been fighting Russia very heavily all along here. The Ukrainians decided to get sassy and decided to invade Russia. Thank you, Luis, Martin, Vanessa. I don't want to miss you guys. And the Ukrainians invaded Russia up here. So the Russians were fighting down here. The Ukrainians invaded Russia up here, and they took a portion of land, not big, but not small, kind of the size I'm showing you with my finger. And they're occupying it, and they're occupying it quite well. Thank you, Kanji person, for the heart. Russians are pretty freaked out. Number of reasons the Ukrainians are doing this. First of all, it puts Putin's job at risk. If a dictator can't even defend his own country, hurts the dictator, obviously. Thank you, Hedge, for the M&M. Is it an M&M? Oh, couch potato. I thought it was an M&M. Thank you. Secondly, they're hoping to force Russia to move troops over to that region from where Russia's already fighting. And we've already seen that Russia has been forced to, thank you, Eileen, for subscribing, that Russia's been forced to move troops from Africa now. Some of the troops they've got fighting in Africa with the Wagner Group and that kind of stuff are now having to come back to fight in Kursk. The third reason is, not arguably, Putin keeps calling for a ceasefire, right? He wants a ceasefire because if there's a ceasefire, Russia is in control of 18% of Ukraine. He would love a ceasefire. Stop fighting while I'm occupying and digging in even more, right? Well, now if Putin calls a ceasefire, Ukraine's occupying Russia too. Putin can't, how can he, what is he going to do, right? Ceasefire? Let Ukraine hang on to that land? And what happens in negotiations now? Previously, there was no reason for Putin to give Ukraine any land back. Now Ukraine occupies Russia. Ukraine actually has an argument for getting land back and saying, you know what? You want your land back? We get our land back. Now, who knows how this is going to play out, but it's very interesting what Ukraine's been doing. Ukrainian troops claim they pushed 2 kilometers or 1.4 miles deeper into that region of Kursk today. Ukraine, a couple of the sort of military news. Ukraine is seeking to involve weapon manufacturers in developing AI for drone swarms and cheap missiles to counter Russia's kamikaze drones. This was interesting. So this is interesting. Sip of water again. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Brett. Oh, multiple Brett gifts. Thank you there. So we found out yesterday that earlier this week, an F-16 fighter jet, a Ukrainian F-16, that was given to Ukraine recently. In August. It is August. They got them probably a month ago. Thank you, Seamurph. One of the maybe 6 or 10 F-16s. Thank you, Robert. Always love the dinos. One of the maybe 6 or 10 F-16s crashed. It's destroyed, killed the pilot. I read today that the pilot actually was Ukraine's top pilot, which makes it even more significant. Now, we do not know yet what caused the crash. The initial talk from the American officials is it was not Russian fire. There's a Ukrainian official who came out today, a member of parliament, and she said it was actually Ukrainian anti-aircraft fire, that it was friendly fire, that the Ukrainian system on the ground shot down their own fighter jet. Thank you, more C. Murph and Jen. What is interesting today is Zelensky fired Ukraine's Air Force commander. The thinking is, it's a hell of a coincidence that a day after we learned that an F-16 crashed and Ukraine's top pilot was killed, and we're told it doesn't look like it was the Russians who did it. Well, that means either the pilot screwed up, the mechanic screwed up, right? The plane screwed up, somebody on the ground screwed up, like again, anti-ballistic missile or something, right? Or anti-aircraft missile. To me, this looks like Zelensky already knows what happened. He knows what happened. It's bad, or it could be sabotage too. Doughboy raises a good point. Could be sabotage too. But the fact, the fact that he fired the Air Force commander to me looks like they know, right? They know, because if it was the pilot's negligence, I don't know if you'd fire the Air Force commander for that, right? Now, the other thing too is Zelensky's also in a position where he needs to show the Americans and the Danes and the Norwegians and everybody else providing these planes that he takes seriously the loss of such an important weapon. So also, the Air Force commander maybe had to be sacked anyway. There's an argument for that, whether he had to be fired, because this is too big of a loss for Ukraine, right? Any case, really bad, just very bad, of course, what happened. Little more here. The European Union is going to train an additional 15,000 Ukrainian troops by the end of 2024. Kyiv Independent, this was actually very good. So the Kyiv Independent reports that European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, one of the top European officials, she's really good. She's very pro-Ukraine, very sort of strong against Russia, which is nice. She came out today and criticized Hungary, basically. The Hungarians keep coming out and defending the Russians. Thank you, Brett. Attacking Ukrainians. Yesterday, Hungary came out and said, we don't think any more weapons should be given to Ukraine. And now I think they just went to Moscow too. Their foreign minister, I think, went to Moscow. They are basically stooges for the Russians. They are Soviet puppets. They were Soviet puppets for 50 years, and they're Soviet puppets again. And I say that on purpose because Putin, to me, he's a Soviet. I mean, he's a KGB colonel, no difference. Well, she came out today and basically blasted. What made me, I'm going to read you her quote. What made me laugh is she used my example that I've been giving you, right? I keep talking to you guys about how Hungary, of all places, when the Russians occupied them and the Russians slaughtered Hungarians in a horrible invasion, 1956 was Hungary, 68 was Czechoslovakia. The Hungarians sort of have a special place in hell for a Hungarian who supports the Russians, right? Invading another country. She says today, European Union politicians are muddying the waters, thank you, Crazy American, and shifting the blame for Russia's war on Ukraine. She says she means Hungary, of course. They blame the war not on the invader, but on the invaded. Right? In other words, you blame it on the Ukrainians, the people being invaded, not the guy invading them, the Russians. Not on Vladimir Putin's lust for power, but on Ukraine's thirst for freedom. She goes on to say, so I want to ask them, meaning I want to ask Hungary, would you ever blame the Hungarians for the Soviet invasion of 1956? Would you ever blame the Czechs for the Soviet oppression of 1968? Now, the other reason she says the Czechs is, I mean, she kind of shouldn't have said, she almost should have said Slovakia, because at that point it was Czechoslovakia, it was one country. And that's the other place the Soviets invaded and slaughtered people. But I freaking love that she did this. She called out the Hungarians and she said, so should we blame you as well when the Soviets invaded? And she's also reminding them, the Russians came in and slaughtered you people. And you, of all people, have no respect for your neighbor who now is being invaded and slaughtered by those same Russians. No, she's really good. She's really good. She is the president of the European Commission. Some European needs to give us a better definition of who that is. I know she's a top European official. It gets a little confusing as an American because Europe, there are so many layers to the European bureaucracy now, to the European Union bureaucracy, that I couldn't tell you her job description. It confuses me. I know she is always in the news. She's one of the top European officials. She's certainly one of the most senior officials. She goes to a lot of the sort of international events. She represents them. But I don't know, again, if somebody could say what the president of the European Commission really is. Anyway, if you want to throw it up there, we can see. Ursula, exactly. Von der Leyen. Little more here. Reuters. This was a good story from Reuters, too. Some Russian companies are facing growing delays and rising costs on payments with trading partners in China, leaving I say it like Trump, China, leaving transactions worth tens of billions of yuan in limbo. Yuan is the Chinese currency, or yuan, I guess, depending how you want to say it. Russian sources, Russian companies and officials for a few months have pointed to delays in transactions after Chinese banks tightened compliance following Western threats of secondary sanctions for dealing with Russia. So basically, and the source said the problem has intensified this month. Basically, a few months ago, the Biden administration and a number of European countries told the Chinese, if you keep evading the sanctions, we are going to come down on your banks and we are going to sanction the hell out of you. And the Chinese freaked out and clamped down on their businesses doing business with Russia. So that's very good. Misho says, the president of the EU Commission is the top job in the EU. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I would have thought it was like the Speaker of the European Parliament or whatever you call it or whatever. Anyway, it's a top European parliamentary job. Okay. It's titular, but I know she appears at a lot of the huge international events, right? In any case, all right, let's move on. International Criminal Court is urging Mongolia to arrest Vladimir Putin during his upcoming visit to that country. The Mongolia is a signatory to the, I think it's called the Rome Convention, the Rome Treaty, but it basically is the treaty that establishes the International Criminal Court, and that countries sign to say we are members of this International Criminal Court. As you know, the International Criminal Court has basically put out an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin. Mongolia is under duty to arrest Putin, but it is expected they will not, because they don't kind of have the power to stand up to him. Thank you, Nar, for subscribing. Hi, Deb, while driving. Don't type while driving, Deb. Don't do that. Another story, two more stories. This segment of the show I call Russia is a Dictatorship Watch. Sergei Mikhailov, the publisher of a Russian independent newspaper, was sentenced to 8 years in prison today for spreading false news about the Russian army. Thank you, Slickline. Here's what he did. He published stories about the Bucha massacre. He published the truth about what Russian troops did when they massacred civilians in the small town of Bucha, which is sort of north and maybe a little bit west of Kyiv, in the first month of the war. You might remember that was the first major massacre that the world found out about. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Randy. The Ukrainian troops. Remember at the beginning of the war, the Russians took a lot of land and then lost a lot of land. Thank you, Randy. About 6 weeks into the war, the Ukrainians took back a lot of land and got Bucha back. Thank you, Taylor. They got Bucha back, and that's when the world saw the slaughter, all the dead civilians. Remember the famous photo of the guy, like an old man, I think he had a little hat and a suit, and he's riding a bicycle, and he was dead on his bicycle. They just shot him dead, like an old man riding his bike. A number of people survived. They told just horrific war crimes. I mean, the Russians just took men out of the houses and shot them. The women, and like very young women, like teenagers, women in their 80s were raped. They forced the men to watch. Anyway, this Russian journalist wrote about it for his independent publication, and he's now got 8 years in prison for simply writing a story about what the Russians did in this town. Russia is a dictatorship. I repeat it over and over again. Thank you, Taylor. And especially for the Trump supporters out there who have this weird fetish with Russia. And frankly, the only reason they have the weird fetish with Russia is because it is a cult. You know, the whole MAGA movement is a cult. And Donald Trump has a weird fetish for Russia. We don't know why. We don't know why. Russia is a dictatorship. It's an authoritarian state and a dictatorship. Their elections are unfree. All the election observers have confirmed that over and over again. And the very fact that somebody is sentenced to 8 years in prison for writing an honest story about what the Russian troops did shows that they're a dictatorship. They are a dictatorship. But it's just pretty disgusting. But again, people need to know this because the MAGA people, in their cultishness of Donald Trump, keep looking at Russia as the model of government they want, the dictatorship, the hateful or democracy, right? The hatred of the West, frankly, the hatred of America. They hate our freedoms, and the MAGA people love them for hating our freedoms. It's a little screwed up, I got to tell you. So it's important to keep pointing this stuff out because, again, Trump himself has got some sick beholdenness to Russia. And his own staff has said this. His former White House chief of staff, the Marine Corps general, said it. He couldn't figure out what Trump's weird fixation was with Russia, why Trump was always such a sycophant, such a suck-up to Russia. In any case, very bad stuff. All right, final story, which is kind of interesting. Thank you, NAR. Thank you, Alan. Final interesting story. I'm making my dog's okay. All right, she's okay. Is the New York Times reports that Brazil is blocking Twitter. Elon Musk is in a fight with a Brazilian Supreme Court justice ever since Brazil had basically their own Donald Trump, who was trying to take the country into autocracy, or I should say authoritarianism. And they sort of empowered the Supreme Court justice to basically, and they did the same thing the Trump people did. They tried to storm, I think they stormed the Supreme Court. Let me look at this real quick. In that case, it was the Supreme Court, I believe, versus our case being the storming of course, the Congress. Hang on a second. Oh, they stormed both. They stormed the Brazilian Congress and the Supreme Court in a bid to provoke a military takeover of the government. Even worse, I mean, our guys tried to violently overthrow the government. In Brazil, they did it intending to have a military coup, even worse. Well, the Brazilians had kind of had enough of the guy trying to violently overthrow their government, and they appointed the Supreme Court justice to basically keep an eye on any kind of support for hate speech or support for attacking democracy. Again, every country has a different constitution. In America, the Constitution is super strong so that you're allowed to say almost anything. You're allowed to say things in America that you're not allowed to say in Britain, for example. We've talked about this before with the Brits. You can get up and say on any street corner, I've got to be careful what I say because TikTok is very weird, with their censorship. I can stand up and support a terrorist group by name with a sign. I can get up and support the H-man from World War II carrying a sign saying he's a great man. I wish he were president. I mean, you can do any of that in America. It's allowed. You can't call for violence. That's not allowed. Now, the call for violence is usually like an imminent call for violence, like, let's go attack the cops. If you say that, you're in trouble. But generally speaking, you can do all that stuff here. In Britain, I know you can't. Eileen says you can't do a lot of it in Australia. In America, as Rainier said, hate speech is free speech in America. Hate speech doesn't matter. You can say anything you want about blacks, gays, Jews, women, whatever. Again, the NZs, it's allowed. It's disgusting, but it's allowed, right? Brazil, not the case. So this Brazilian judge has been cracking down. He ordered Twitter to ban a number of accounts of, he said, extremist accounts, anti-democracy, attacking democracy, supporting hate speech. Elon Musk refused. Elon Musk is very funny. Elon Musk likes to pretend that he's, what do you call it, a free speech absolutist. Elon banned people left and right. He let Nazis come back onto Twitter, literally, and then he banned a bunch of journalists for writing articles that were critical of him. Elon bans people all the time who disagree with him. But he likes the Nazis and gets them to come back. So Elon is not a free speech absolutist. He also, the Indian government, this story kind of blew my mind. The Indian government demanded that Twitter basically ban in India any posts about I believe it was the video itself, of a BBC documentary about one of the Indian leaders. It might have even been Nehru or something. And it had critical parts of the documentary. The Indian government got Musk to ban the documentary on Twitter, at least on Twitter, insofar as showing in India. Right. So that shows where he is on free speech. Right. He's fine with hi, nephew. He's fine with going against free speech. Well, he, as Elon does, told the judge to go F himself. He did it in some disgusting way. He posted some picture on Twitter of, I don't know whether it was a pile of shit or something. He did something gross. Of course, classic Elon, who's a 12-year-old boy. So the judge is now sanctioning Twitter. The judge literally is taking Twitter offline in Brazil, 200 million people. And this one really cracked me up. Listen to this. Hang on. This is from the New York Times. In an unusual move, the justice froze the finances of another Musk business in Brazil, SpaceX's Starlink satellite internet service, to try to collect fines he has levied against Twitter. Starlink, which has recently exploded in popularity in Brazil, has more than 250,000 customers. So Elon, unfortunately, you get a lot of money, and obviously, it's kind of self-reinforcing. You think you're one of the richest men in the world, and you think I must be a really important person. Not important, because I guess you are important because you got the money, but I must be really smart, and everything I say goes, right? So he doesn't want to listen to the dictator. He wants to be a dictator. Actually, he doesn't want to listen to the judge. Really amazing. Really amazing. Not actually. Dempsey take a page out of this guy's book. Well, out of the judge, except in America, you might not get away with these things because you can't ban an account for hate speech, for example. You can't even, you couldn't even ban an account. Legally, it would be legal for you to defend January 6th. It might even be legal in America for you to say, it probably is legal for you in America to defend. I wonder, I think you could probably openly say, I think January 6th was an attempt to violently overthrow the government, and I support that. You might be able to say that in the U.S. I think you can. What you'd have a hard time doing is if you said, let's all gather together and support the insurrection, run to the Capitol now, then you're in trouble. You can't do a call to action for imminent violence. That's where the line gets drawn. In any case, Elon thinks he's so special. Oh, well, but I love that this judge is like taking him on. And by the way, every time Elon does more of this crap, Twitter is hemorrhaging money. I mean, they're not making any money anymore because all their advertisers left because Elon's crazy. I mean, he's been acting crazy. He's also been, again, inviting the Nazis back and everything else. You can Google the articles on it. It's really bad. I mean, for Twitter, but, good, frankly. All right, guys, let's hang and chat. That was the end of the news. Remember, tomorrow we've got our coffee talk. So that's 10:30 a.m. Chicago time. Thank you, Moses, and thank you, Brett. I still love that your name is Moses. Thank you, Taylor. Brett again. Taylor again. Make sure I didn't miss some of you guys with the gifts. Brett again. Okay, Brett, you did send a lot of gifts. I may have missed you. Sorry. Tari. Okay, I think I've caught up with you guys. Randy, yes. We've got our coffee talk tomorrow morning. Thank you for the hugging bear. We've got our coffee, Carol. We've got our coffee talk tomorrow. Thank you, Taylor. We're hang out with the paid TikTok subscribers and the paid YouTube members. And it's just us, closed show. We hang out, we talk. It's fine. Thank you, Trilitic. William says, when is censorship okay? Well, in the US, it's okay when it is a call for imminent violence, right? Hi, we're organizing in an hour. Join me to go kill the police or whatever. I mean, something crazy like that. That would be illegal because you literally can't do an imminent call for violence. That's illegal in America. But there's a lot of stuff you can't censor. Well, it depends what you mean by censorship too. For example, if you slander or defame someone, right? If you, and again, slander and defamation depends based on a famous person versus a regular person. But if you knowingly impugn someone's integrity, right? Like if I thought Elon Musk were really a very smart guy and totally normal in the head, but I said I think he's a little crazy, but I knew Elon Musk wasn't crazy. I knew he's a great guy, right? That would be slander potentially, because literally I'm lying in an effort to impugn someone's character. Now, maybe you don't censor it, but you can sue me for it and I can be punished for it monetarily, right? Is that censorship? Maybe. Thank you, Blue, for sending the subscription. Oh, did Kay Brown get that? Okay. Oh, great, Kay Brown. Join us tomorrow morning if you like. Well, the other thing is actually Gunther raised an excellent point that I should have brought up myself. Thank you. Weeble got a subscription. Either thank you, Weeble, or somebody who gave you a subscription. Either way. Thank you, Randy and Fred and Taylor. Blue sent more. Okay. Thank you, Blue Ariel. Blue Ariel sent the additional subscriptions for you as well, Weebo. So join us tomorrow morning. Gunther's right. Officially in America, it is not censorship. It is only censorship when it's government action. Okay? It is only, let me rephrase this. It is only a First Amendment issue. It is only a freedom of speech issue when it's government action. If it is a private actor can do whatever the hell they want in general, right? I don't have to let you come on my property and say something stupid. I can just kick you out. I don't have to let you come in my store and be a Nazi. I can just say leave, right? That's allowed. A government has to be very careful. A government can also be a state government. A government can be a state college, a college that's run by the state, right? They have to be very careful. They fall into this. So freedom of speech, typically when it's raised, people raise it about things that aren't government, and they don't understand that there is no First Amendment rights if you're not a government entity, if you're not being oppressed by a government entity. Now, the other issue here is, which I sort of explain to people, is I think in America we have a cultural First Amendment, meaning there is a and again, Trump has been testing that, unfortunately, but there is also the expectation that in our culture we like to favor more speech rather than less speech. Right? We generally think, again, I don't know that we all really believe this, but thank you, Running. Thank you, Jay Shea. The concept is, who am I thinking of, guys? The famous old guys saying, maybe it was actually Supreme Court, it might have been Brandeis or somebody, Supreme Court Justice, saying sunlight is the best disinfectant, meaning it is better, the best way to counter hate speech or wrong speech or bad speech is good speech coming in and shining light on the bad speech, right? Culturally, we like to think that's the way we think in America. That's why people get upset when they hear of things being censored, even by private parties, because there is this bias towards towards free expression, which is not a bad thing, not a bad thing necessarily. But hate speech is allowed. Yeah, there's no such thing as hate speech is totally, and under the First Amendment, there's really nothing you can do about it. I mean, you'd have to literally amend the Constitution to ban hate speech. You couldn't, there's just no way around it. Oh, that's funny. First Amendment rights in Canada? I don't even know what the recognition of Manitoba even means. I'm assuming you mean you don't have it. Well, first of all, First Amendment's American. They don't literally say First Amendment rights, do they? Because that's literally like an American thing. You don't have a First Amendment. Even if you have an amendment, it's not the first one. And what do you have? Do you have a constitution? Do you have a charter? What do you have in Canada? Well, of course, that's the joke. Yeah. But I mean, they don't actually say First Amendment, though, do they? Well, discrimination gets into an interesting situation because religious groups claim they can discriminate. This is the in vitro fertilization. Republicans claim they like in vitro fertilization. Republicans voted against a Democratic effort earlier this year to basically enshrine federal protections for in vitro fertilization. And Republicans said no, because that would impinge on the religious liberties of religious hospital. First of all, why the hell there's a religious hospital is beyond me, or a religious doctor or whatever, right? But religious doctors and religious pharmacies would be forced to help you, and it would be going against their religion, or I suspect they also make a freedom of speech argument out of it, saying that they are allowed to, it's religious speech, saying, I will not serve you. It's pretty screwed up. It's pretty screwed up. Thank you, Moses. Thank you, user 992, Taylor and Moses again, and Darian. They also want to turn away gay people at pharmacies because it's their religious right to turn away a gay person at a pharmacy. People have sued. Like, you get these religious nuts, and again, they're all Republicans, but these religious nuts that go work at pharmacies, and then they say, I don't want to give women contraceptives, like the pill. And it's like, huh? It's against my religion. Thank you, Doughboy. Well, that's ridiculous. And some of them have been fired, and then they sue. Oh, it's religious discrimination. And it's like, okay, so do we get to do that? Do I get to be a paramedic and say, I don't like Muslims or something? I mean, like what? You know what I mean? I just, or again, if you're a paramedic, oh, I don't like gay couples. I think that's immoral. So if they get sick, I don't want to help them. I mean, but this is what Republicans argue. It's crazy. Oh, that's interesting. D. Lyle says we had a baby at a Catholic hospital, and she wanted her tubes tied after the birth to no longer have more babies, and they refused. Yeah. Thank you, Moses. Yeah, crazy. Interesting. Thank you. Did Blue do more? Thank you, Blue. Appreciate that. What else, guys? Oh, Elon Musk said voting by mail is insane, but he's done it himself. Record show. There you go. Elon Musk said today, or the last couple of days, voting by mail is insane. He's voted by mail himself. Elon is saying it because it is pretty clear to me that Elon wants something from Donald Trump. Elon Musk strikes me as a rather transparent individual, just like Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants something from Vladimir Putin, and he wants something from Kim of North Korea. He does like dictators overall, like he likes Erdogan in Turkey, but he also clearly wants something from Putin. Now, maybe he wants Putin to get rid of the incriminating evidence sending Trump to prison. I don't know, right? Who knows? But he clearly wants something. Elon's the same way, if you ask me. I think Elon wants something from Trump, and that's why he's doing all of this. So that's why Trump is against voting by mail, because guess what? Thank you, Marge. Democrats tend to vote a lot by mail. The whole anti-voting by mail thing is an effort to basically impinge on the voting rights of Americans, to stop Americans from voting and stop Democrats from voting. That's why they're against it. Trump, you might recall, so that's what Elon's doing. Elon, Mr. Free Speech Absolutism, is actually trying to stop Americans from being able to vote. Thanks, Elon. You're a wonderful American. Funny, no one would realize you grew up under apartheid. But Donald Trump famously did this in the last election. He was against voting by mail in the couple of weeks before the election because Democrats do it and Democrats, win that way. And he kept talking about how it's dangerous. Your vote won't be, votes won't be counted. Votes will be cheated. Nobody should vote by mail. It's dangerous. And he convinced Republican voters not to vote by mail because he kept criticizing it, and it hurt him badly when the vote happened. So it was very funny. Thank you, Ernie, for the gifts. It was very funny. But I love Trump doing that. Nobody should vote by mail. It's dangerous. Your vote won't be counted. And his people said, "Oh, yes, master. Yes, 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 Mr. Cult Leader. We won't vote then." And they didn't vote. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. I don't know with Kim or with Xi. It's interesting. His daughter got a ton of patents from Xi right after Trump became president. The Chinese magically decided Trump's daughter Ivanka should get a lot of government decisions she was waiting for. She got once Trump became president. Wasn't that a nice coincidence? The problem is Republicans hate the Chinese. Thank you, Bryce. Trump, absolutely, honestly, the Chinese could offer Trump $1 billion and he'd be in their pocket, I think. But the problem is Republicans hate the Chinese. Trump doesn't. Trump's not a Republican anyway. Republicans hate the Chinese. Trump is in a bit of a pickle because even Republicans, I think their lack of adherence to any principles only goes so far. I mean, pretty much every principle they've been able to overlook, from their adherence to religion, anything else. But the China thing, God, they hate China. So far, Trump has had to be strong on China because Republicans hate China, and he doesn't have a choice. So, yes, Ivanka got patents. I think they were patents. I don't think they were trademarks. Google it and see. They might have been trademarks, but she got like a bunch of them right after Trump became president that she was trying to get forever. Thank you, Moses. Excuse me. Still yawning. Dog's still waking me up. They were patents. Okay, thank you, Julian. I thought so. So what else, guys? We'll go a little longer. Then I've got to prepare some chocolate chip cookie batter for a dinner I was invited to at a neighbor's house tomorrow, which is nice. She's having a little bonfire. I'm not convinced it's bonfire weather, but we'll see. But she's making paella, which I thought was very sweet. So she wanted us to bring dessert and sangria, and I was kind of like, I have no idea how to make sangria. I mean, I know sangria isn't hard, but I still have no idea how to make sangria, and I can't get to the store. Chocolate chip cookies I can make, so I'm probably going to do that. But yeah, sangria. I guess you can buy sangria. Really? I would probably buy it. Although if you buy, isn't it just like fruit juice, fruit and wine? Is it any good when you buy it? Thank you, Jonathan. I love sangria, but is it any good when you buy it? Maybe I'll go to the Jewel and buy some if I can get a ride. I can see. Oh, my nephew's there, right? See if I can get a ride. Oh, the other nephew's here. Okay. I'll see if I can buy some. Okay. I'll just bring her a bottle or a box. Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, I make a good chocolate chip cookie too, but I typically make desserts for things because that's what I like. But I can see about maybe getting a bottle so they've got enough. Wine, cognac, and juice. Oh, that with cognac too. Excuse me. I've never heard of adding cognac to it. I always think of wine, juice, and fruit. Very nice. Thank you for subscribing, Hustler or Blue, whoever might have gotten you that. Oh, and my skin scary infection thing has gotten much better finally. We've had these weird, it still itches like hell. We've had these weird mites that attack cicadas falling from the trees here in Chicago. And literally, you don't see them. They bite you. And like a day later, I kid you, the damn thing was this big on my arm. It was horrific. Oh, it's so much better now. Yeah, it still itches. Like by the end of the day, it itches, which is weird too. Anyway. DoorDash. I didn't think of that. That's true. I could DoorDash. I can ask my sister or my nephew if they can drive me. We've got time. But I may make the dough tonight because, by the way, chocolate chip cookie dough. New York Times did a story on this. They sort of their food people did an investigation. Chocolate chip cookie dough is actually better on the third day. So basically, like you make it on a Friday, put it in Tupperware, plastic, put it in the fridge until Sunday. And when you make it on Sunday, the cookies, among other things, taste more caramel. They actually have a caramel taste to them, which is very interesting. And I mean, and the Times did the whole thing. They did a whole story on it. They did a whole experiment and everything and said, yeah, it's true. I know. How do you not eat it? True. But they did a whole story. So I'm going to at least do it tonight so it has a day to ferment, like overnight. Actually, very much so, like exactly like making any kind of a wet dish. Very often, either before you cook it or certainly after you cook it. It's why food is often better the next day, right? I found it with bread, not bread, but we call it bread, but like banana bread, pumpkin bread, which are basically cakes made from fruit and stuff. I've got a pumpkin bread recipe. The night I make it, it's always like, okay, and I'm disappointed. I let it sit until the next morning and it's delicious. Like they're crazy. I mean, really crazy with that though, because it literally is the night before is like, eh. And the next morning, the quick breads, exactly. Very good the next morning, which is very strange. Lasagna, a lot of those dishes really are, though. I think they're much better the next day. So you always, if you cook something and you're not happy, do try it the next day after it's been in the fridge and see, because a lot of desserts, I find that way too. They're different the next day. You know, not all of them, but, you know, Cajun rice is better. Yeah. Recipe for what? To me or someone else, are you asking, Fabiana? Oh, we love to talk baking on this show. I mean, we do the politics, but like towards the end, we'll often diverge into baking because I love cooking and I love food and I love cooking. Like I love baking. I don't mind cooking in general, but I love baking. Pumpkin bread, I've got to look up my recipe. It could be the Cook's Illustrated recipe, I think. Borscht is better the next few days. That's interesting. I have to look and see. I actually have an excellent. I did put it on Discord. My cranberry bread, not cranberry, blueberry bread recipe that I got online. I forget where. It's very good, and I tweaked it though because the online. I never understand how recipes. And I'm sorry, I refuse to believe this. Like recipes get great reviews online. This recipe needed twice as much salt. Like instead of half a teaspoon, it needed a teaspoon or whatever it was, and it needed 50% more sugar, which sounds crazy because you'd be like 50% more sugar is a lot of sugar and twice the salt is a lot of salt. But I tweaked it. It's perfect now. I added like half a cup of chocolate chips. Maybe you can go up to 3/4 cup. 1 cup was too much because it wiped out the blueberries. It's a wonderful recipe. But I put it on the Discord under our baking, cooking recipe section, whatever it's called. It's really good. It's a very easy recipe. My last meal, honestly, would be a lot of chocolate. I mean, I'm not even sure I would eat food. Like, I think I might get like chocolate brownies, chocolate chip cookies, the volcano cakes, fondant, chocolate fudge brownie ice cream, cheesecake, my mom's cheesecake. That's very good. I would do that too. But I'm not convinced I would care enough about food itself. Maybe. Ashley is showing me Target or Walmart has a very good sangria. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I'll see if I can get my nephew to take me tomorrow, one of the nephews. Oops, hang on. Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's good because I can grab that and I'll start the cookies tonight. Why is the U.S. scared of letting Ukraine use missiles in Russia? Because Biden is afraid of, Putin's got nuclear missiles. Oh my God. Thank you, David, for the gift. I just think they're afraid of the Russians. And honestly, sure, Russia does have nuclear weapons. We should acknowledge that, but we've got nuclear weapons too. I just would love to know in what scenario Russia's ever going to use its nuclear weapons and not think that we're going to nuke them back. I mean, there is no scenario. and honestly, we'd probably do better if we publicly, I think we told them that privately. Maybe we need to tell them that publicly. Now, you say it publicly and people get scared. Oh my God, we threatened to nuke Russia. But to some degree, 10:30 tomorrow, Chicago time, Poppy. I do think there's an element of we need to tell them and say, stop talking about nukes. If you nuke us, we'll nuke you and destroy your entire country. We don't plan on doing it, and we won't do it first. But I promise you, as President of the United States, I will do it second, and there will be nothing left. And then you watch the Russians freak out. But I got to tell you, every Russian citizen would be going, holy shit, if an American president said that. you know, I'm a little more belligerent. So we're just talking about the Russians threatening to use nukes and why America is afraid, and frankly, I think the French and Germans are too, of, for example, letting the Ukrainians use our weapons to strike deep inside Russia and this kind of stuff, because we're all afraid of Putin's nuclear weapons and blah blah blah, and we should not be afraid of his nuclear weapons because we've got them too, so he can't use them against us. Creme brulee is good. I've never had a Yorkshire pudding per se. I know I've never had Yorkshire pudding. Actually, I've always been curious about that. I did try making those popovers or whatever once. They were okay. I didn't love them, but I think because they didn't have any flavoring. Flan. I like flan. Yeah, my mom's got a good flan recipe. It's good. I don't love flan, but I like flan. The Greeks like flan. I mean, the Spanish do too, obviously. But you make the best Yorkshire puddings. Well, I've got to try a good one once. I've never actually anytime I've been to the UK, I've never really tried it. Yeah, no, I'd love to try it. I mean, I'm someday hopefully find, we'll make Callum. Can Scots make Yorkshire pudding? We'll have to make Callum make it for us. Brisket. I'm not a brisket fan. No. David Weir, nukes should be a red line for us if Russia uses them. Yes. They should. Okay. So yeah, Courtney, please do send it. I'll try it. The only thing is, also when I've read Yorkshire pudding recipes, I've never quite understood the, fat or whatever the hell it is you're supposed to use. I'm always like, what the hell is that? It's leftovers from baking a roast. Well, I don't make roast. I've never understood what that is. Coconut pineapple cake sounds very good. Creme brulee is very good. Dutch baby German pancake, it's similar. That's what I'm saying. I tried to make something like that once and it was okay. I didn't feel like it had enough flavor, but it may be the recipe. Actually, I used the New York Times recipe, and I stopped subscribing to New York Times. First of all, New York Times, they're a bunch of thieves. You subscribe to the New York Times, but they don't give you the recipes, the cooking section. They don't give you the crossword puzzle. They don't give you the product reviews. It's like, okay, what are you, an airline? I've got to pay for a freaking towel, right? So that was the first reason. I was like, screw you. You're a bunch of misers. I'm not going to, I subscribed to you already, and now you're going to charge me extra to get a freaking recipe? No, they're jerks. That's too greedy for me. The second thing is their recipes suck. I don't think I've ever made a New York Times recipe that worked. There have always been bad recipes for me. Every time and the Yorkshire pudding I tried was the same thing, or Dutch baby, I think they called it. Same thing. It was crap. And I did subscribe at one point because I thought, oh, these are great recipes. Every single recipe sucked. So now I read a lot of reviews, and even the reviews online. Like I said, that the blueberry bread wasn't. I had to edit. I use a lot of King Arthur recipes that tend to be good, not always. I've had some recently that were not good, but they tend to be very good. So anyway, but it kind of pisses me off. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some of the recipes are good, but I've had very bad luck to the point where I'm actually very suspicious of to what degree the New York Times tests their recipes, to be honest. I kind of wonder whether they find a recipe, they try it once, and then they write about it, rather than testing it and making sure it actually works. Anyway, I think I told you I also found that William guy on TikTok had an excellent lemonade recipe. It was to die for. I made it. He's right. You basically take 6 lemonades. 3 of them you cut into slices, and thin slices. So you could have 8 or 10 slices in one lemon, right? 3 lemons, slice, put it in a pot. 3 other lemons, you juice the lemon completely. Get the seeds out, whatever. Juice that completely in the same pot. Throw out that rind. So 3 lemons whole, sliced up in the pot. 3 lemons, juice. 1.5 liters of water. And I think a cup of sugar. I've got to let me check my recipe as we're talking. I think a cup of sugar. And hang on. Because I am telling you, I was shocked at how good this was. 6 lemons. He does say he rinses the lemons with salt first, because obviously it is a little gross you don't want to, you're going to boil these. You don't want to boil lemons that aren't clean. You got to clean the skin, of course. Add 1.5 liters water, 1 cup sugar, bring to a boil, and then reduce, Sasha, I hear you, reduce heat and simmer for 10 to 15 minutes. I did 15. Let it cool down. And once it's cool enough, put it in the fridge. Like, I don't want to put it in the fridge hot. That's a little weird. Let it cool down, put it in the refrigerator. And he says he dilutes it with tonic water. I had it straight up and thought it was great. He thought it was too sour and not too sour and too sweet, but he typically dilutes it with like bubbly water or something. I had it, like I said, straight up, and it was the best lemonade I'd ever had. What's interesting is because you're boiling the skin, you do get a little bitter, but it's hard to explain. When he said you get a little bitter, I thought, bitter, that's disgusting. It somehow, it adds to the flavor. That's a much richer flavor than just lemon juice or something. It's to die for. I gave some to my friend Damien, and he was like, you guys have met Damien. He was like, oh my God. So yeah, it's outstanding. So that recipe I would definitely make as well. If you like lemonade, if you even vaguely like lemonade, and if it's too strong, like I said, buy either mix with a little water, or even better, buy a little bubbly water and just water it down slightly, and you get it perfect. I mean, that recipe I just told you, 6 lemons, wash 3 of them. 3 of the lemons, slice up maybe into 10 slices each, throw it in a pot. 3 of the lemons, juice them, put the juice in a pot. 1.5 liters water. Google what that is if you're American. 1.5 liters water. 1 cup sugar. Bring to a boil. Lower to a simmer, 10 to 15 minutes. Cool it in the fridge. Let it cool. Put it in the fridge, and then you can drink it. And if it's too sweet or too lemony, you can always water it down a little with water, or you can water it down. He likes to use tonic. You can also use bubbly water. I found for me, it was the perfect strength, actually. It was not too lemony and it wasn't too sweet. For him, it was. So, you can always do that. Very good. Yeah. Send me your other. I'll take some Yorkshire pudding recipes. I'll try it. Lemon shake-ups? I don't know. That's funny. It's very good. It's very good. Yeah. 500 mils is half a liter. This is 1.5 liters. So it's 1.5 liters. So 1,500 mils, exactly. And again, you can Google what that is. It's, I don't know, 6 cups, or I don't know what the hell it is. You can Google what it is. It's an easy conversion. Anyway, all right, that's it for the recipes, guys. We're doing 1 hour and 20 minutes. I think I'm going to go. Like I said, I'm going to make some chocolate chip cookies, since we do have the neighbor's dinner tomorrow. Haggis, I may have tried haggis, somebody else's haggis when I was in Edinburgh. I don't remember now. I may have. I don't quite remember. I'm grossed out by haggis. I generally will not eat it, but I would try it if somebody had it. That I would do. But the concept kind of disgusts me, to be totally honest. All right, guys, have a good night. I will see you guys in the morning. Like I said, we're going to do the show for the paid subscribers on TikTok and the paid members on YouTube. On YouTube, it's everybody with a green name. On TikTok, it's everyone with SNN next to your name. Join us for our special show for just you guys tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Chicago time. That's Central Time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, New York City time. You can figure out for the rest of the country and the rest of the world, just look for 11:30 a.m. New York City, and whatever time zone that is for you. All right, guys. Sorry, Jetta. All right. Thank you, Ginger, for subscribing, or whoever may have gotten you that. Join us tomorrow morning. And Vlad, I'm going to message Vlad again. Last time he was busy. Remember, he had actually, I will message him again. I'll say, people asked again if you're around tomorrow. Show is at, let's say, 10:30 a.m. Chicago time, 11:30 a.m. DC. I never want to pressure Vlad to do this because he's busy, but it's nice when he can join us. My Ukrainian friend Vlad, who's a big expert on the war and involved with the sort of military and the charities and everything else, often joins us and gives us an update. So yeah, Labor Day barbecue. Woo woo. All right, guys. I'm going to sign off. Like I said, I got chocolate chip cookies to make, and then I'll see a bunch of you tomorrow. And then for everybody else, I'll be back Monday, 6 o'clock Eastern time, U.S., 5 o'clock Chicago time, for my regular show. We do this Monday to Friday, most days, Monday to Friday, and we talk about the war in Ukraine and the election. So, and baking when we get into it as well at the end of the show, which we just did. So thanks, guys. Have a good night. I will see a bunch of you tomorrow. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you, mods, and thank you for the gifts as always. And